So, I know it's been over a month since Creed 3 came out, so probably a bit of the hype that would have surrounded this ranking back then is not here now. But I am here, and I'm very excited to be doing my ranking of all 9 Rocky and Creed movies. There will be no spoilers in this list, and this is purely my opinion. I've watched all these movies for the first time within the last month, so this rank is not from like a longtime fan, just someone who just saw these movies for the first time very recently. But anyway, let's get into the ranking. Number 9, Rocky 5. Well, I don't think this movie is terrible. It suffers just because it's the most, uninteresting. It's got some good ideas in there. The idea of Rocky sustains brain damage so he can't go back in the ring, but he trains this new fighter and kind of uses his glory to kind of, fulfill himself and his need to succeed. That is not a bad idea whatsoever. The way it's kind of bad is, first off, Tommy Gunn is kind of a weak villain. He's not very interesting. He gets very angry at Rocky and turns on him for no reason. And the one guy who convinces him, good performance, but just weird motivation for a Rocky film. All the performances are a little bit phoned in this one. Sylvester Stallone's still trying. It's just all right. They have this whole plot line about Rocky's kid learning to fight, and it feels like it takes all the wrong messages with it, where they teach him to fight anyway, when the whole thing is no, he shouldn't be taking after his dad. It's really weird. And Rocky blatantly ignores his son for his newfound son, which could be interesting, but just kind of makes Rocky look like a jerk. And there's their attempt to make it go back to him being poor, but it feels very phoned in, very weak sauce. Mickey doesn't even, not Mickey, Paulie doesn't even get in that much trouble for giving away the family's fortune. It's weird. And it's still got some interesting fights. It's not too bad. Some montages are solid. It's just by far the weakest Rocky movie. At number 8, Rocky 2. This one is basically just the first movie again. And that's really all it is. I feel like everybody takes a bit of a step back in character development. Although it is very interesting to see Rocky in a position where he's struggling to keep up a career supporting him and Adrian without boxing. And then it's also I think the final fight at the end of the movie, very, very well done. Maybe even better than the final fight in the first one. It's very satisfying to finally see him win. And I just like the whole score of this movie. It's shot pretty well. It's a very solid film. It's just a little too much like the original. At number 7, Rocky 4. My dad's going to kill me for putting it this low, but it's fine. I don't know, this one is probably the campiest of the Rocky movies. And on the one way, it's so ridiculous that it's distracting, but on the other hand, it's so ridiculous that it's entertaining. We got a full performance of Living in America. We got the Rocky, with the Cold War. Single-handedly ending the Cold War. We got some interesting fights, and I feel like the stakes in this movie definitely bump it up. With what they do with Apollo Creed, it's very, very interesting, very daring. Ivan Drago, he's a very menacing villain, one of the best of the series up to this point. And it's fun to see Rocky training in Russia. It's just, this movie is the most Rocky movie. And sometimes that works in its favor, and sometimes it does not. But still very entertaining, and I like all the music. At number 6, Creed 2. Now, this is a very solid film. I really enjoy it. It's so awesome to see the legacy of the Dragos come back and Adonis having to step up to face them. Just makes for a very entertaining, engaging film. I like how hesitant Rocky is. I like the whole storyline about him maybe trying to get back involved with his son. The boxing matches are great. The training sequences are great. It just doesn't have the same underdog charm as the first Creed movie. It's a little weird that they decided to start the movie with his heavyweight championship. So it definitely could have been paced a bit better. That's one of my real big criticisms of the film. It's just a little more predictable. But it's still a ton of fun, and so satisfying seeing Creed versus Drago once again. At number 5, Rocky 3. This movie, the first 10 minutes pumped me up. Seeing this montage of Mr. T and Rocky training, and he's with his family, Mr. T's struggling, and they're blasting Eye the Tiger. It is so much fun. And just the way the story ties in with Mickey and Clubber Lang's rage, and then I love seeing Apollo trade Rocky. This movie is campy as heck, but I think it is the best product of the campiness of Rocky. This is the point where it's just campy enough to where I have a hell of a fun time without being too much like Rocky 4 at some points. But Rocky 3, amazing, greatest film ever made in humanity, love it. 4 and 3 are extremely interchangeable. This is just how I'm thinking about the ranking right now. Number 4, I think I'm going to go with Rocky Balboa. Or Rocky 6. This movie, it is so interesting to see an older Rocky, an older Paulie and all that, but he's trying to get back into the ring. I love his relationship with his son, the speech he gives to him. It's phenomenally well written. This movie is one of Stallone's best performances. I like the tribute to Adrian, and the villain was a bit weaker, but I just love how this movie ties in with it being Rocky's final fight. There's so many lines and musical cues and moments that like send chills down my spine, and it was such a great conclusion to the mainline Rocky films. It's super satisfying. I'd recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it. It's genuinely really, really good, and Sylvester Stallone being older in the boxing match isn't even that distracting at all. So, Rocky Balboa at number 4. At number 3, the original Rocky. Now, this film didn't really strike me as a best picture film while watching it for the first time. I still really, really enjoyed it. I love the whole cast. Sylvester Stallone is maybe, like, he's perfect as, like, this underdog here that you want to succeed so much. His flirting with Adrian's a little awkward at points, but it's got a lot of charm to it. I love Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed. He's one of my favorite villains in the franchise. He's just got this great energy to where he's not really a villain. He's just a very competitive heavyweight champion. And he's not, like, evil like a lot of the guys going later. He's just like, I'm going to give this underdog a chance for a show, and then he gets beat. And Carl Weathers, who I met the other day, he's very engaging, really great in this, super fun. And it's just the end scene is great. The training montages are iconic. The theme is so amazing. It's hard not to love the original Rocky. At number 2, Creed 3. The newest film in the franchise is super satisfying. I have a whole video on this movie, so I'd recommend going to check that out. So I won't talk about it a ton here. But it's got insanely great direction and music. It's super satisfying. Jonathan Majors as Damian Anderson is phenomenal. One of the best but most understandable villains in the franchise, and his dynamic with Adonis is great. Michael B. Jordan, one of his best performances. Great original music, very satisfying fights, and it's just one of the most unique entries to the Rocky franchise, especially with Michael B. Jordan's directing. And I had a few minor criticisms, but nothing big. I just think it's great to see a movie. It doesn't have Rocky in it, but it is a great movie that is just Adonis Creed. But at number 1, the original 2015 Creed. This movie is the best in the franchise on so many fronts. It's another phenomenal underdog story. Ryan Coogler's direction is probably the best in the franchise. Ludwig Göransson kills it with a score with the new pieces and the original Rocky themes. Seeing Adonis build up and trying to build his own legacy without relying on his father's name is so satisfying. The final fight is amazing. It's well shot. I love the whole supporting cast. I love Tessa Thompson. But just the whole dynamic between Rocky and Adonis fighting their own personal battles in own very different ways is so well written, so well done. And this is probably one of the best underdog story movies of all time, one of the best sports movies of all time. Sylvester Stallone, his best performance ever in this film. It's phenomenal. I love and would absolutely recommend Creed. I hope you guys like the ranking. Not going to have a video for a little bit just due to a lack of content. But definitely coming by the end of the month is Mandalorian Season 3 review and Peter Pan and Wendy review. I'll see you all then. Bye-bye.